So, good morning, everybody. I'm Kate Waldhauser. I am the Managing Director at Portage Bay Solutions. I'm the co-founder of the Claris Connect User Group and a very happy member of WoodFM. And I'm joining you today from sunny San Marcos, Texas.
Hi, Kate. It's great to see you. I'm sorry I missed the San Marcos River when I was in the area last month. Looks great. I'm John Newhoff, and I'm joining you from Seattle, Washington. I'm also with Portage Bay, and jointly with Kate started the Connect Users Group. Really excited to be here with you today. Before we get into the session, I'd really like to thank Brandon Stanford, our project coordinator at Portage Bay, for her indispensable help in organizing the Connect meetup, and the rest of the Portage Bay team for pitching in to demonstrate the Connector of the Month whenever needed. And I'd especially like to thank you for joining us here today.
It's really good to see you too, John. Yeah, I feel like I'm going to have to jump right in here as soon as we're done. So, John and I are just super excited to be your co-host today for the Claris Connect Innovative Ideas from the Claris Connect User Group at AutoEnter Live. And before we jump into the heart of this session, I wanted to take a moment and set the stage and give you a little idea about how this group formed. So back in 2019, Claris Connect was a brand new product. We started using it at Portage Bay, becoming familiar with its power, but we noticed that there was something missing in the community. You know, this was a brand new technology, and as with any brand new technology, these questions start to arise. How do you maximize its power? How do you become instinctively aware that this is a tool in your toolbox? How do you use it effectively? And are you missing any opportunities because of a gap in your knowledge? So we found we weren't alone in asking these questions, and there was a need in the community to form a support and technical group to understand and better use Claris Connect. So that's what we did. We formed a user group, and we set forth with these intentions. The first was to understand the best use cases for Claris Connect. The second was to develop our Claris Connect skills. We also wanted to spark creativity. And last but not least, in a time of COVID, when everybody's working from home, we wanted to create a space to have fun and to create a community with other people. And that's what we did. And this is what happened. So without further ado, I'm going to start showcasing what the members have been doing. And we'll start it early on in the formation of the group. We were very fortunate to get the support of Claris, and Ronnie Rios stepped up to volunteer and to present on WebHooks. And in case you're not aware, WebHooks really are one of the central and key technology that Claris Connect is built upon. And who better to present on that than the Claris Connect product owner himself. So here's Ronnie.
Hey, my name is Ronnie Rios. I'm part of the product team at Claris, currently working on all things Claris Connect. I'm originally from the Dominican Republic. I'm currently working out of New York. Webhooks, however, don't require a request. A webhook simply sends the data when it is needed. So instead of having to continuously ask, sending requests for data, we can simply wait for that event to happen and get that response back. And this really simplifies the integration efforts that we might put into something and make it much more efficient. That's kind of webhooks in general. I mean, Claris Connect, we have a utility that we call webhooks, and I sometimes say it's a little deceiving because it does more than just webhooks, right? The first thing is that the webhooks utility can be used as both triggers and actions in Claris Connect. So as triggers for flows, the component, this utility allows us to create kind of like API endpoints, if you will, that you can use to receive data from other applications and services that will then fire or trigger your flows and have flows kind of run programmatically. They can also be configured to wait until the end of a flow to respond with some JSON data. But also, like I was saying, can also be used as actions for a workflow. And when we use it for that, it allows us to kind of craft or build custom HTTP requests that you can define every single attribute, everything from the headers, the bodies, the URL. You can even add attachments to it. So in other words, you can use the webhooks to call other APIs for which maybe there's no connector inside of Claris Connect. So it's a very versatile, really utility that's built into the platform. So it really has a lot of functionality, right? You can use it for those kind of callback URLs when you register a webhook in another site. You can use it to create your own kind of API. If you kind of build your own custom API and create the endpoints with it, you can do it to respond back to requests. You can also use it to make your own request as well and kind of integrate with other APIs. and it doesn't wait for the rest of the flow to run in order to get that response. And I don't know what happens here in between, kind of the triggering and here at the end, right? And I can't get any data back from there. So what we wanted to do is we can go here into the webhooks section. And if I go into this particular webhook, if I turn this on, remote return sync response, I'm telling Claris Connect that before it responds back to that what I wanted to do is to actually wait for the entire flow to end before it sends the response back to the client, right? In this case, FileMaker. So in this case, we go back over here, it'll run, it'll wait for all these things to execute and then send that back. But the other thing is it won't send back a generic response from the webhook itself, in that I'm going to bypass that by using this action called reply with JSON data. And what that means is that I can specify and customize what that response is going to look like. It doesn't have to be that generic thing that we just saw. So now when I run this, I got this custom JSON object that I defined in here. Right? This is a nice little custom. The cool thing about this is that this is still uses all the other features in Claris Connect. So I can actually populate this with some dynamic data. So maybe data from one of the other steps over here, and have it completely return information that was gathered during the flow execution, which is great, right? So you can have it even talk to a third party, use another connector, do some operations, and then report back here to the client, right, to whoever sent that original request, which is really great, and it's very useful for kind of getting the result back of what happened.
As Kate mentioned, at the time we started this users group, Claris Connect was still a fairly new product, and we wanted to provide a space for people to hone their skills, but also to be able to understand the best scenarios for when to use the product. We were delighted when Heidi Porter at the Moyer Group offered to facilitate a discussion and interactive brainstorming session around when to build a full API integration versus when to use a product like Claris Connect.
Hi, I'm Heidi Porter, co-owner of the Moyer Group. I first used Claris Connect during the pre-release testing, and the Portage Bay Claris Connect meetup caught my eye because it was the first FileMaker group that looked at all these different APIs and services and details and what they did, and looked specifically at how Claris Connect can help integrate with FileMaker. I personally think when you're looking at API and service integration, the way to think outside the box is to think outside more than one box and find the best solution. Thank you. Because this is really an art rather than a cut and dry kind of thing that we all have to figure out when someone wants to integrate with something externally. So I just put down these different options. There's always the option that instead of building an API integration, you do it manually. And actually, I missed something here. So when you might just do something manually, whatever task it is, like if it's a MailChimp email, you might just write the email yourself and send it out. But there's when to build it natively, right? Whatever function you want, when to build an API integration, when to use an integration project, or when to do some kind of open source integration, or when to build your own collection of APIs. Just to frame this discussion a little bit, what we're really looking at is when do you do which type of implementation and what kinds of things lead you to different decisions. Then how do you frame that for clients? For instance, we just had a client last week that wanted us to build a Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Twitter feed, and we said, we really think you should use one of these social media aggregators out there instead. And so there's reasons we made that decision and proposed that decision and framed it to them a certain way. We could get down into the weeds of details about different APIs implementations, but let's try to keep it up at a higher level unless those lead to differences in which type of implementation you do. And the big one would be security, or unless they lead to a preference for a different type of implementation. So we're trying to drive at, helping figure out what's the best decision for our clients. Then also to frame the discussion is, you have, what types of tasks are you trying to do? There's different groups of tasks, like, different stacks of APIs in Google or Microsoft or mapping or e-commerce versus some kind of custom task flow. Yeah, and so you're actually saying you look at it from a different angle. Can you do it? Can you do it manually? Build an API to see the weather. Can't you just look it on your phone, or is it really worth it? Versus, can you do it natively? Versus coding the API and those considerations versus automating. And you actually, would start here, right? You would say, can I use Claris Connect? Does it support my actions? And does it support them in the future too? You start with one of the connector products and see, whether it supports what you want, whether there's good value proposition. If it doesn't, then you're going and looking, at coding the API and the general API considerations in the API, like, the Google OAuth flow, quality of the API doc. It's interesting because I had been thinking about it the other way around of looking at, can you do it manually? How much is that? And so there's different directions people, it seems like, look at it. And maybe it's not really directional. It's just looking at these different areas and looking at the pros and cons for whatever specific task you want to do. Would that be fair?
I think another point about Claris Connect is that you can't really do with the coding an API integration in FileMaker is this real-time connection, right? So as soon as a person subscribes to your MailChimp list, that Claris Connect flow happens, and then it's going to do something in FileMaker, right? Or add a new record. But in order to accomplish that in FileMaker, you have to have a server-side script running. And really, what's the smallest interval you're going to schedule that for? And if you schedule it for that, what's the performance, or the cost of that? So I think that is, and I know we can accomplish that in other ways besides Claris Connect. And this might be a point in comparing Claris Connect services to hosting your own, web service, right? Because what are the differences in those two options? But that really, for me, is like the biggest reason why I would choose Claris Connect over an API integration in FileMaker.
It's very situational, right? If you, depending on, different types of clients, what they want to do, there's just all kinds of considerations you got to sit there and think about, right?
One segment of the meetup provides time to learn more about each connector in Claris Connect and help share creative ideas, tips, and tricks for how people are using them. We call this Connector of the Month. During the 18 months of the group, we've been able to delve into a really good cross-section of the available connectors. At our most recent meeting, Charlie Bailey of Codance gave us a thorough presentation on not one, but two connectors, Mailparser and Slack. He taught us some tricks about using the Slack connector and provided insight into how Mailparser can be used to automate email parsing.
If a user fills out this form and clicks the submit button at the bottom of the screen, not only does that data get captured by JotForm, and I can log into JotForm and view that data, but me, as the owner of this form, I get an email that contains the contents of this form. Now, Mailparser picks up as soon as that email gets forwarded to it. So this is my form, and I've processed a few inbound email messages. The very first thing you do with Mailparser is you configure a new mailbox, a new inbox, and you send a test message to that inbox. You send a test message to that email address. It gets picked up by Mailparser, and Mailparser immediately takes you to a configuration screen where you can specify what the rules are. So if we pop back into our Claris Connect configuration, we can see that this is a really, really simple flow. We have a new email coming in from Mailparser. All you need to do is, when you first add this Mailparser trigger, you're asked to connect to your Mailparser account. I select the appropriate inbox. You save that, and then you add your action on the end of that. And my action here is I just simply want to create a record. And then I just specify, what do I want to do with the data? The received at value from Mailparser into my date field. Feedback type goes into feedback type. Describe your feedback goes into a describe your feedback field, et cetera, et cetera. So if I go back to my form and I fill this out, I'm going to add some comments. My comments here. I'm going to submit that feedback. And if we go into our FileMaker database to inbound messages, we should see a record appear here in a few seconds. There it is. It's that right there at the bottom. And honestly, I think that I would, though I've never put this particular flow into production, if a customer had access to Claris Connect, and in the future, all Claris customers will have access to Connect, which is super exciting. I think that this might very well be a preferred way of implementing this. Mailparser also has a feature which actually didn't make sense to me until you just asked this question, Kate, but it allows you to configure email aliases, which is another Mailparser inbox that just automatically forwards to the inboxes that you specify. So if you had some complex logic, you could specify a destination inbox in Mailparser that only processed records of a certain type or from a certain domain, or where the body text contains some bit of information, but have an all-encompassing distribution list, even from within Mailparser, that sends it out to all these various inboxes, each inbox doing its own little thing. And then your Claris Connect flow can be checking messages from one or more of these inboxes and doing something very discrete with each one. So you could conceivably configure all sorts of complicated logic. Things that we did discover, and we almost completely discarded Claris Connect as an option because in our situation, we wanted to post to a private channel. And this was something that we, for quite a while actually, we just made the assumption that we could not post using this method into a private channel. And the answer is that it turns out you actually can. And it's a little bit of configuration inside of Slack that's required. If you look in your Slack workspace, once you connect your Slack workspace and you build this workflow with Claris Connect, you're going to see down at the bottom that Claris Connect is an authorized app in your Slack workspace. That Claris Connect app will by default have access to all public channels, but doesn't necessarily have access, and in fact does not have access to any private channels, because Claris Connect is interacting with your Slack workspace using, undoubtedly behind the scenes, what's referred to as a bot token. And that bot token is generally configured and will only have access to those channels that are public, or that bot token has access to.
So we wanted to facilitate impromptu sharing and a way for small group collaboration in our meetup. And we did this by creating a session in the regular part of the meetup called Show Your Flow. And this consisted of breakout sessions of 3 to 5 people where we got together and brainstormed and could show and problem solve different flows we were working on. It was during one of these sessions that I met Fabio Bosisio. Fabio showed us this EverSign integration he'd been working on to facilitate document signing and approval, and I was really impressed. So I asked him to present it as a formal topic at the meetup, and he kindly agreed. And here you go.
The customer is a luxury travel agency based in Italy that handles very complex documents in different languages. So all these documents, from proposals to contracts, from POs to invoices, are created entirely in FileMaker. And what he needed was to automate the signature of these documents. The customer wanted to simplify the signature procedure by having a kind of automation built in directly in FileMaker. After a brief research, we discovered this company called EverSign. At first look, we found their APIs very clear and easy to use. And we liked the option to test their services with no particular limitation using a sandbox. In this demo, I'm going to require the signature for an offer. I want to send to a test client. In this case, the document has some services, few payments details, and other specific configurations. As you can see, there are no attachments at this moment. And from the right menu, I select the language for my output. Once ready, I open the PDF configurator where I can compose the document, selecting a specific section or decide to print in full. A specific script handles all the translation and composes the document. And if you take a look at this software, you see that there are some places where we ask for a signature. Behind, you can see that FileMaker has stored the file for me automatically. I'm now managing the attachment, and I'm going to ask for a signature. It takes long because the document size. When the document is sent to EverSign, it returns the document hash and the status. In the meantime, my test client receives an email asking for a signature. In this email, there is a link that opens the document in a secure environment. I can go through the document and put my signature on it, or use the wizard that helps me to fulfill the document signature in all the parts planned. Once completed, EverSign redirects to the customer website and then back to our agency. A Slack notification is sent to our team to notify the event received. In this notification, a link automatically opens our FileMaker file and specifically the record we want to check. You are now seeing two files in the attachment tab. The original one sent to EverSign with the new status, and the signed one downloaded from EverSign. And that's it. Our document is finally signed by the client, and we also have the fingerprint posted by EverSign. And this is the flow.
And now for the fun part, although this has all been fun. The way we used Zoom and Mentimeter and different technology to create our group in a really fun and engaging way is how we had fun. So we had icebreakers at practically all of our meetups, and these are the slide that shows you some of the most interesting and fun icebreakers that we had going on. You can see what people had in their trunk. Another thing in our industry that I consider fun is analyzing data. So we used Mentimeter to ask the same questions at each meetup to try to gain some ideas about who our group members were and what their experiences were adding up to. And this slide shows the total number of experience with, the average number of experience with Claris Connect and the average number of experience with FileMaker. You might be able to analyze the trends on your own here. We also had members from all over the world, and here's a map of all of our members. And I also wanted to show you a growth of the meetup over time. So this shows the popularity of this meetup and our consistent growth.
Many more people have participated in the meetup than we can show here today, and we really want to say a special thanks to all the attendees who participated and presented. The goal of this session was to showcase the innovative ideas from the Claris Connect User Group, but as I review the content over the past 18 months, an underlying lesson becomes apparent. It's about the power of the user group. Anytime a group of people gets together to share ideas, we all win. This is a powerful thing, and I often find myself leaving the group inspired to embark on my next project using what I've learned. The participation by people from Claris has been particularly appreciated, giving us the chance to convey our opinions and needs as a community of users directly to Claris, and hopefully allowing them to hear feedback to drive a stronger product. We're proud of what we've been able to accomplish together with this users group, and I think we've accomplished our goals, technical, educational, and creative. If you'd like to see the full presentations during the original meetups, simply join the meetup at meetup.com and you'll have full access to the recorded meeting archives. Before we go, we wanted to let you all know about a special announcement. The Claris FileMaker Western Washington Group and the Claris Connect meetup are joining together to form a new user group called Claris Beyond. The Western Washington Group brings a long history of learning and advocacy for the FileMaker platform and a deep knowledge of its foundations and capabilities. The Claris Connect Group brings a focus on exploring ways to bridge the gap between FileMaker and other applications and environments. The Claris Beyond Group's specific focus will be on topics related to external integration, such as Claris Connect, REST API integration, and JavaScript, or the various ways FileMaker can be integrated with the outside world.
Yeah, we welcome hobbyists, developers, managers, anybody with any skill level is welcome at this group. Please join us. It's a lot of fun and a great place to learn together. And scan this QR code here to get more information, join the group, as well as sign up if you wish to speak or present on any topic. We'd love to have you. So our first official rebranded meetup will be on August 17th at 12 p.m. Pacific. Please join us then. And thank you so much for having us here at AutoEnter Live. I've really enjoyed being your co-host today, and I hope you've left with some new creative ideas or innovative ideas about how you might use Claris Connect. Have a good day.